star. We have the walk star, GMT Chong, with us this afternoon or morning, depending on where you're at. And of course, we have the True Man, host of the True Man podcast and TrueManLifeCoaching.com, Mike Van Pelt. And without saying it too many times, I truly am appreciative, true being the word, of how grateful I am for these two men and the leadership that they exude and bring and the people that they connect with, the people they've connected me with. And so that's one of the things that I love about leadership is connection. Now we're going to talk, and there has been talk about leaders connecting things, right? But today we're going to look at problem solving. Leaders are problem solvers. I mean, that's actually one of the things when you hear somebody describing a person as a great leader, this is a topic that comes up on a regular basis. They're a great problem solver. Oh, if I have a problem, go see Mike. Oh, if you got a problem with this, go talk to Jim. You got a problem with this, go talk to Chris or whoever. Oh, you got a problem, go talk to the manager. Rank, title, and position matters sometimes, right? You think about you're sitting in a restaurant and there's a problem. Yeah, I'd like to speak to the manager, please. Because they're the ones that are most likely going to be able to handle it. Now, I've seen some servers be able to handle it right away. And I actually, as a leader, one of the things that I encouraged all my employees to do when I managed some restaurants and different things I was a part of was be a problem solver. What do you think? And you got a customer that's irate about something, they're absolutely, I have to talk to the manager. Okay, fine. But instead of just always being that most important person to talk to as the problem solver, I created more and greater leaders than myself by helping them help the customer. You know, and we had a company policy. You got proof that you screwed it up, fix it. Either A, they get a coupon for free food or they got free food, whatever. You can fix it right then and there. It's not a problem. You don't have to have me to say it as long as you're doing it right. Because there were some places I went where I found out it was, they were telling family and friends, hey, just call and say that you ordered green peppers and not onions and throw a fit and you'll get a free pizza. I showed up to that and I was like, we're done with that. That is not problem solving 101. That is enabling and I'm done with it. That's free food going out the door. So the big thing to recognize here is, yes, you are looked to as a leader, as a problem solver. My question to leaders from looking at how can we raise each other up and build one another up better is the importance of teaching problem solving and then enabling, not being an enabler, but enabling them to be a problem solver and then guiding and strengthening them from there. Because here's the thing. Mike, I'm going to start with you this week. How did you become a good and even great? Because I've done a lot of work on problem solving with Mike. I will personally vouch 1000%. Mike is an incredible and exceptional problem solver. No two ways about it. I've also listened to his podcast and they've discussed different things in society and whatnot and being a man. And there's problem solving 101 happening all the time on there. So, and yes, that is a plug for the show. But my point is, I want everyone to understand the value that I hold for both of these men and the fact that I have done different problem solving with them. So Mike, how important is to understand as a leader that how did you learn this? How did you learn how to be such a good problem solver, even great problem solver in your case?
Experience. You know, here's the funny part. This is a continuation, certainly, of last week's talk on discernment, because in my view and what I'm learning, when you take the time to think, and I mean really think rather than just jump into, and I'm going to call it fix-it mode. That's generally speaking what a lot of people do. Well, I'm going to jump into fix-it mode because I have an immediate remedy for the situation. And that may end up being a temporary fix. Problem solving is about becoming solution focused. And the only way that you can become solution focused is by being a good thinker, a good discerner. And so I think what I've learned to do over time is slow down. Not every time something comes up does it automatically mean a decision needs to be made. Now, if you're deciding between chocolate and vanilla ice cream, sure, you can make a quick decision on that.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
No, I get that. Of course. Yeah. I was trying to make it easy here, Chris. By the way, ice cream is the ultimate problem solver in the world and should be brought to every meeting where you think there's going to be a challenge. Because why? If I was running for public office, see, now you got me off on a tangent, Chris. If I was running for public office, I would go everywhere with ice cream. It's the most electable thing that you could possibly do. And you get people's guard down and you get to have a conversation. So how did I learn that? Good discernment. And, right there, I just solved a career politician's challenge with it. But listen, I can't say listen. I got to stop doing that, Chris.
Okay. We are listening.
Problem solving starts with being solution focused. And that's what I try to get my arm wrapped around when I'm thinking about something. I hope I answered your question.
No, you absolutely did. The big thing, Mike, you focused on, and I'm glad you did, was the experience. And he even brought in, I don't know if everyone caught it or not, there were 3 major topics that he brought up. Leaders are thinkers, leaders are discerners, which was last week, and he is right. It is definitely a continuation of discernment, and leaders are thinkers. These are the very things that leaders, this is one of those is a must-have as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Leader. There are some that, you may not be the strongest at it. And look, again, I'm not asking everybody to have everything perfectly figured out. However, as a leader, problem solving is like a 101 of leadership. It really is. And so, outside of experience, Jim, I want to come to you because something that I've always appreciated in you is you bring a lot of academia to the table on a lot of things. When we meet for the Global Cooperative Chamber on Wednesdays, you express different things, you allow other people to speak. And so, yes, there's the experience side. Like, I just found out the hard way. I can't let this happen again. And then you see someone else start it. But there's another way from an educational standpoint that we can utilize as leaders when it comes to problem solving. What are some different ways we can look to educating ourselves to be better problem solvers? And I'm not just talking about putting a puzzle together, although that can be fun and relaxing. Jim, can you hear us?
Okay, was that directed at me, Chris?
Yes, sir. You're up.
I'm doing problem solving as we speak. I'm right in front of Panera. But to answer your question, if you could please repeat it, because I want to make sure I get this correct. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Mike spoke to the experience side of learning problem solving. I'd like to hear you speak more on the educational side, some different things we can do to learn problem solving.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting question. First off, I'm problem solving as we speak. When I was here, I'm in front of Panera, I wanted to be outside to stay awake, Chris. That's a problem solving, right? Ability, right? But the practical side is interesting. It's very quiet here. All of a sudden, there's a car that decided to park right in front of me. No one leaves their engine on. It's been a little bit hotter. He leaves his engine on. It's a little bit of a noisier car right here, okay? And to make things worse, he actually gets out of the car, leaves the car on because he's probably picking up something. He just pulled out. But that's why I moved here, because I know that if I'm out of the direction of where the car is, instead of being in front, I know through experience that basically I'm going to be able to hear better. I'm not going to hear the noise as much. Now, the whole thing is that the educational aspect is really important, that as you learn lessons, that you really learn from them so that you can make better decisions in problem solving. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mike? You should 100%. Be better, right? As situations happen. I'm going to name one movie about problem solving where you're given a chance over and over again to problem solve. Do you know what that is? Groundhog Day. Remember Groundhog Day? So,
man, I was thinking of a bunch of other movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill Murray gets up. He's able to live the life, go to a certain point, and then after that certain point, at some point, the alarm clock rings again, and then he's waking up and he's given another chance, and he learns through different through different experiences what to do, what not to do. You know, how to avoid certain situations. So it's all
Wait,
about the
Jim, can you say the
educational
name of that
aspect.
movie again?
The education is so important.
Yeah, and so, it's also, Mike's got a bunch of books behind him, and I'm sure some of those have some problem solving in it, or even stories.
Yeah.
Through storytelling. We've shared how many stories? This show's been going on for almost a year now. How many stories have we shared of stuff where it was like, I could have handled this better, or I heard of this, or I was a part of this. It may not have been my fault, but I was a part of this. And we've utilized those experiences to educate people. It's so important. One of our mentors, EA Solkovitz, Mike and I work with at Givers University is, he says, you really want to learn something from somebody, learn from someone who's done it.
Yeah.
Learn from someone who's done it. I've been to karaoke. I've sang a few times. I've never set up one. Now I could buy all this. I could go on Amazon or whatever, DJ.com it is, or, you buy yourself. I just, call a salesperson. Hey, sell me the top of the line, everything you got, man. I'm going to put on the premiere show. And I go on Facebook and I show up at whatever location. Like, yeah, man, we'll try you. I got tens of thousands of dollars in speakers and computers and lights and everything, a fog show, lasers, whatever. And no one shows up. And man, Jim, what'd I do wrong? Chris, you forgot to advertise. But the crazy thing is stuff like this happens. Stuff like this happens. When I work with clients and I'm doing coaching or working with people that I'm helping to guide them in their leadership, one of the things I tell them is, do you know, and I had several of my officers tell me this when I was in the fire department, do you know how I know to tell you that? You did it too? Yep. Oh, crap. So I should have asked first. Yeah, sometimes it is better to ask first, by the way, everybody. I want to make that abundantly clear. The whole, do now and ask for forgiveness later is better. Not always true. I'll get that out of your head. I hate that saying, by the way. I'm not a fan of it. There are certain times I get where it applies. But the point is, there's so many different books and stuff out there that you can utilize, and different things that, different documentaries you can watch. I go back to my days of fire department. Some of the days where like the weather was really crummy, we really couldn't get outside and train and do things. Maybe we did a few drills and stuff out on the apparatus floor, which was heated, or, because weather was bad. Or, we could pull up YouTube videos and watch different things. And it wasn't ever to like critique what another company did. We didn't do that. It was as much of, what do you see? How would you handle this? And we'd go around the room with each other, rookie all the way up to even battalion chief in my station, because we had a chief in our house. And everyone's perspective might be, and saying, like, of course, you're going to pull the line, go put out the fire. Like, that's the basics. But we would also have young officers or acting officers, in my case, that, hey, what's your size up? What are you saying on the radio? And then they would take their experience and educate me. So that's one of my number one goals when it comes to problem solving. And there's a reason why these other topics were listed before it, going back over it. Communicators, listeners, receivers, trainers, developers, planners, collaborators, innovators, toolboxes, resources, learners, readers, rational and discerning. All of that adds up to this one topic and why it's so important to be able to do. You've got to be able to communicate in problem solving. Mike talked about taking that pause or that breath. There are those times you may not get as big of a breath as you would like because it's an emergency or urgent situation. I was a part of maybe a few of those as a firefighter. It was like, nah, we got to go. This is happening. There are other times that is very important in the skill here is the discernment that we discussed so vividly last week, is having that discernment to know that difference. So Mike, when we're thinking about problems that arise, I want to continue a little more of the talk on discernment and problem solving of recognizing what it takes to hit the calming zone. You know where I'm going with that one. Welcome.
The calming zone. Well, as a fireman, this. One of the reasons that you were able to stay calm is it comes down to training, practicing. So I was looking at some stuff today on problem solving. And of course, everybody likes to do the 8 greatest steps to problem solving. So I'm going to apply that here in real life. So I was just telling you guys. So over the weekend, I watched the movie on Apple, the Beanie Babies. It's the Beanie. It's a movie about the Beanie Babies craze that happened. Time Warner, the guy Ty Toys, was making stuffed animals. So he's with two little girls and a woman who would ultimately become his wife. And the kids are like, well, man, these stuffed animals are so great, but I can't take them to school. They're too big. Oh, they're too big. Okay. Ty's got an open enough mind to reverse engineer. Well, if they're too big and they can't take them in their backpack, but they want to take them to school, what do? Oh, make them smaller. Make them smaller. So he has an obstacle and he overcomes the obstacle and creates an opportunity. And so sometimes I think we make some of our challenges in life overly complex. How can you reverse engineer the situation? How can you play it forward? Well, if something's too big to take along, how can I make it smaller? And sometimes, just flipping, I have found this to be the case more times than not. If you flip the question, you may come up with another answer that you would have never otherwise done just by thinking about a challenge or an obstacle differently. So I strongly recommend watching this movie. Of course, I love watching movies about true stories about, well, I don't know how true it is. I assume most of it's true, but, like watching the Founders movie about McDonald's and stuff like that, I'm just fascinated by that stuff. What went on during that era? Ty Toys basically were at the forefront of the internet, selling products on the internet. They were right there on the cutting edge, developing websites to sell Beanie Babies. So if you want to watch something really cool and you love the 80s like I do and figuring out how all the .com stuff started, you got to check this movie out. And it's a great movie about problem solving.
Yeah, and I'm glad you went down that road, because the thing is, a lot of times when we talk about problem solving, it turns into, oh yeah, we're good at conflict management. Okay, that's cool, great. What about some of these other problems that you have going on that have to do with innovation?
Mm-hmm.
Or what about these problems that have to do with being a resource or having the resources that are necessary to fix things? I've shared the story of the industrial factory where they needed this anti-slip mat down that also had some cushioning to make the day go better for those that are on their feet using this press. And everybody was like, no mat fits because it can't be next to this other person. There has to be so much distance. And so someone walked around the back side of the machine, took a tape measure, said, move it 6 inches backward. Well, we can't do that. There's not enough clearance. He goes, yes, there is. Here's the tape measure to prove it. Of course, everybody stood there like, why didn't we think of that? Well, because nobody wanted to truly solve the problem. They wanted a quick fix.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, is not having a quick fix, but being willing to innovate, being willing to learn, being willing to step back and ask, how can I be better, or how can I or we make this better? Such as the Ty Toys thing, the Beanie Babies. I'm genius. Oh, let's just make a stuffed animal style. You look at it now and you're like, man, how did no one think of that to that point? How did no one think of that? So Jim, how important is it then, to be constantly looking for innovation to solve problems and to be open-minded to these types of things?
I'm going to answer it twofold. First off, just being open-minded. I hear so many things. Mike's been around me for a while and talked to me, and so have you a little bit, Chris. But a lot of what happens is people think, oh, if it was that simple, then somebody already would have done it. Not true. A lot of people they don't understand really being open to the idea. If you don't see the solution, hey, implement it. There's one thing that I could tell you that I just never really well, before I get to that, never really understood why no one ever came out of it sooner. But remember when video stores were there, the video rentals? Remember that? Hey,
Blockbuster.
Yeah. We thought about this, actually being able to have a store that rents videos. Hey, Blockbuster came out, all those places came out. somebody just did it before us. And the fact that they have multi-millions of dollars to implement it. We were just kids back then. That's a deterrent sometimes. But you know what? Let me ask you this. How many of you have carried an ice chest? I think one of the most incredible inventions was putting a wheel on it. How many people have probably thought through many years, hey, well, why don't we just put wheels on the ice chest, but never did it for many years? You know what I'm saying? And so it's that person that innovated, the person that really found the problem, was open-minded. Hey, no one's doing it. I'm just going to do it. The part about opening your door, do you know when your door opens? Like I hear it a lot with the cars here, right in front of Panera. When you open a door, there's that little red light that comes on, and then also there's that sound. Somebody invented that. They made multi millions of dollars just on that idea because they didn't put a limit on it. They thought, wow, somebody didn't implement it. Let me go ahead and do something other people aren't doing. So I think it's very important to be innovative, to be able to put it into action. Put it into action. One final thing. Have you guys seen Shark Tank, right? You remember Shark Tank?
Oh, yeah.
There was one lady, all she did, I don't know if you saw this, she put a word, like she said, overthinker. Her whole thing was just putting problems people had on their shirt. You know what? Realized she had about $2.5 million later. She was saying, I don't know what I was doing. I just put it together and just put it out there. And I learned because, again, being open-minded, even Mark Cuban said, wow. She goes, well, how much are you going to make this year? I'll probably make about 300,000 in about 24 hours. It's 24 hours. What do you mean? Well, we open up the door to sell. And Mark Cuban summarized and said, oh, I get it. You build up the momentum. People are waiting for that day. It creates a real surge. And so when you open it up, you sell it and you sell out. You know, and she just wanted a mentor. They're cash positive, not very many expense, invested $500 in the business, and now multi-million dollars, almost $500,000 a few years later, just wanting some advice. Is that incredible? Because she was open. She did not let her own mental state of, well, somebody must have already done it, get in the way. Anyway, back to you, Chris.
No, that's great. And I think that's the big thing to understand is, you know, and again, and even coming back to conflict management, be innovative in how you resolve a conflict. You know, there's so many leaders out there that are so used to the, well, we're just going to fight and we're going to yell and we're going to scream and then nothing gets solved and then everybody just goes their own way and the problem's still there. Or, you know, like you said, Jim, I mean, how many people do you think hooked up a cooler to like a small dolly cart or threw it in a wagon or probably did engineer some type of wheels on it? They took the wheels off their kids' old wagon that they don't use anymore in the backyard and duct taped it to that sucker and pulled it around. Everybody's like, oh, that's genius. You should sell that. And they're like, I don't know how to sell anything. Now there's not too many coolers that don't come with wheels that you got to carry, you know, lug around. That's not compact. And, you know, you look at like the cell phone, for instance. You know what I mean? How many people ever thought that the phone could come off the wall and leave the house without a 100-foot extension cord that we grew up with? So many of these different things. I mean, the current cell phones, which we need to just call them, I don't know, I could either get in trouble for this or be a genius for saying it needs to be called a pocket computer. It's not a phone anymore. Very few people even use it for a phone. And yet it's more powerful than what got the astronauts up into space and on the moon. And so being willing to take a look at something, I remember when I first got started in coaching, started taking the courses, started learning because I want to see, I know there's these problems that exist that I help people with because that's how I became where I'm at now and doing what I'm doing now was helping people solve these problems. And there was several people who came in, they came in brand new. They're like, yeah, I've just always done this and people told me I should help others with it, but I don't know how to do it. And the number one thing it constantly came back to was when you find a problem you can solve for someone else, which is typically what you solved for you or learned how to solve for you, that's the problem you solve and that's how you help more people. Maybe it's through an online course, maybe it's a book, maybe it's hooking wheels to a cooler. Maybe it's creating a beanie baby or a little stuffed animal that, my goodness, you can't go to any store and not see them. And when you have little kids, you know you're potentially buying a new one. So, it's those very things that as leaders, as innovators, that have helped shape the very world we live in, that has helped us to make things better. Some things have been worse. There's no denying that. There's no denying that at all. And so, next week, we're going to break that down to the very fundamentals of leadership. Leaders are fundamental. We've kind of leaned on this a little bit today, and Mike said it. We tend to overcomplicate things. And it's easy to do. I've done it. Been there, done that. I had one of my old captains. He looked at me and said, "Chris, kiss it." And I looked down. I was like, "What?" I was not in a good mood at this point. And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Kiss it." He goes, "Keep it simple, stupid." I erupted into laughter. And he's like, "Literally, what do you need?" And I was like, "I need this and this to be moved here and here." Had nothing to do with making a call or anything like that. It was just dealing with some paperwork stuff, computer stuff, whatever. He goes, "So what you need is what you just said." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, crap. You're right, sir. I'm sorry." He goes, "All right." He goes, "You good now?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go work out." So, but that's the thing. Leaders are fundamental. Why? Because we're here to solve problems. The biggest thing is keeping the fundamentals of what we do. Take it back to basics if you have to. It really can be that simple. We're the ones that complicate it. So, Mike, how do we reach you? And final thoughts from you today?
Yeah, you can catch me on my website, truemanlifecoaching.com. You can always send me an email at mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. And of course, you'll find the podcast on there. Yeah, I mean, don't complicate this. If you're in business and you sell a product or you have a service, it's as simple as what problem do you help your customer solve? And if you don't know what that is, ask somebody. They'll tell you. And, and then you can create a solution. And a lot of times that's how you solve problems. Hence the Beanie Baby story. Can't take your stuffed animal to school, make it smaller. Beanie Baby.
And then he took it a step further by putting a clip on it so they could just clip it to their backpack.
There you go.
Genius. Yeah, it's so good. That's the big thing is just being willing to take a look at the bigger picture. If you can take that bigger breath, take the bigger breath. Take a look at it. How do we solve this? What do I solve? If you're not sure, ask. Ask. It really is that simple, I promise you. Jim, how do we reach you? And final thoughts from you, sir.
One thing I love what you're talking about today. Problem solving is key to any business. You solve problems. To be a true man, it used to be, hey, if you're a true man, you wore pink shirts. You didn't really care what people thought, right? Now the true man must have a Beanie Baby strapped to their collar. How's that, Mike? There it is for marketing, right?
You can do that, whatever
Brand
it takes.
Hey, are you open to the idea? No. And also,
hey, listen, if your daughter or son handed you a Beanie Baby and said, "Will you put it on your backpack?" you would do it. That would be a true man.
I have one.
I love it.
There you go.
But anyway,
you're a stand-up guy, Chris.
We are always open to solving problems. You can reach me at jimtchong.com. And I love what you're doing here with True Leadership. Again, what I want us to talk about this topic on Wednesday, Chris, if so be it, at the Global Cooperative Chamber meeting. But I think this is very pertinent, just always being open-minded, because sometimes people feel like I got it figured out. First off, it annoys people that they're trying to help. And secondly, you're missing out on opportunity. jimtchong.com or zoomturtle.com and find out all the things that are going on. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, gentlemen. And Jim's absolutely right. If you're not willing to start looking and being open-minded to how we can solve a problem, you're missing out on opportunities like crazy. Now, is it going to be the Beanie Baby story craze that launches you, or Amazon? Most everybody now has forgotten that Amazon used to sell paperback books. There's so many things out there that we take for granted these days because we're not open-minded. It's like, oh, someone probably already thought of it. I guarantee you, before whoever was the first company to throw wheels on a cooler, someone had done something with a wagon or a dolly or something. Guarantee you. It's out there. I want to close with there's I'll call it a poem, and I've referenced it several times. I want to do it again today. Go look up, of all the things we just told you to look up another one. I want to call it a poem. It's a YouTube, Prince EA, The Graveyard. I'm going to leave it at that. I've shared it before, but I'm going to leave it at that. Go look it up and then respond to one of us and let us know what you think about it. Because that's the last place we want our ideas going. You can reach me, Chris Tice, Chris at eaglefirenrichmond.com or www.eaglefirenrichmond.com. Love looking at the bigger picture of how we can solve problems. Looking for that discernment. How can we innovate in this? How can we make each other better? How can we make our sales grow? How can we make our production grow? Things like that. I love working on these things. So reach out to me. Always grateful to have leadership chats. Gentlemen, beyond grateful for you today. What an exceptional chat. Oh my goodness. Problem solving. And this will carry over again into next Monday as well when we talk about being fundamental and taking it to basics, not overcomplicated. But until next Monday at 1:30 p.m. Central, right here on the Walkstar channel via zoomturtle.com. I want you to have your best day ever by making every day great. Remember, you can never did. God bless us all.